I was having y'all, your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we're coming with probably the final practice training camp breakdown that we're gonna do this off season. This is probably it. It was a really fun run as far as me uploading practice clips and me breaking down position group by position group what happens in these practices. This may be the final one. Now, this may not be the last video like this, period, because of course after this Monday night preseason game against the Ravens, which I will live stream from beginning to end on this channel as well, I'm gonna do a review of what happened, and we're gonna go position group by position group for that as well. But as far as getting any information from practice from the Commanders, that's pretty much done after today, because now we're about to really start working on some things that we plan on using in regular season games. And why would they want everybody to see that? So that opponents can use that against them. So this is pretty much it. Who knows, maybe this year will be a little bit different, but as of right now, after today, I'm predicting that the most we'll get update wise until we start to really get into like the preseason games and then we get to the regular season is just injury updates. But all of these in between weekdays and stuff, getting practice updates, that looks like that's about to end soon. But either way, day 19 of the training camp, we got to talk about everything that stood out. We got to go position group by position group, of course. We got to talk about a big time injury update. We have a long injury update today, even though it's nothing serious for anybody. Just to go ahead and get that out the way. I'm not trying to clickbait you at all, but there are a lot of names that we're going to bring up in this injury report today. And then of course we got to talk about some coaching stuff, Eric Bieniemy most notably. And then of course we're doing breakdowns of every position group: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, all the way down to the DBs, all of that type of stuff. Some of the most notable things, again, I'm not trying to clickbait you, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you know ahead of time. Mitchell Tinsley balled out today, even versus the starters for some of the time that he was out there. Also, Rivera and Josh Harris talked about potential contract negotiations with key players that will be 2024 Commanders free agents. Also, Sam Howell had a really good day but threw 2 interceptions. We're gonna dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time and immediately when I release these informative and opinionated videos just like this one. Like I already said, these training camp breakdowns and stuff like that will stop, but that does not mean Rico of Street Scores will stop, because I still have so many video ideas that I've been working on. I still want to break down all of the new sponsorships that the Commanders have gotten. I still have a lot of Rico reports I need to work on with a lot of random stats, rankings, and stuff like that. I have a lot of random clips to upload from the national media talking about the Commanders, good or bad. I still have rookie film sessions I need to really work on, and now that training camp practices are out of the way, we don't have any more access to that. It's like I might as well go ahead and put my head down and really get into that as well. So Ricky Stromberg is up next. I have so much content I need to work on that I'm still going to be coming out with at the very least 2 to 3 videos a day. That's not going to stop. So without further ado, make sure you stay tuned and let's get it.
You tell your family you're gonna be a commander.
All right, so today they started practice at 9 a.m. It was originally reported to be a padded practice, but then by the time they got out there and they showed that they didn't have pads on, practice ended up going a little bit different than originally reported to the reporters. Like, the reporters are given information like schedule-wise, like by Ron Rivera and company, and apparently they just changed it up today. But that's really cool that the weather was in the upper 60s and low 70s. I am very, very jealous of y'all up there in the DMV area, Virginia, Maryland, all that type of stuff, man. I'm very, very jealous. Also, with this being the last practice open to fans and even relatively open to media members, like they won't be allowed to just give updates about plays and stuff that happen, and let alone upload footage of anything. So just to go ahead and warn y'all, this is like for real, like the last day. But because of that, it was open to fans, and they had like about 8,000 to 9,000 people out there. So one of the most crowded, most well-attended practices of the entire training camp. We had the one day where we hit like 10K. That was big time. But then other than that, this is probably the second most. Also, again, like I've already said, this is the end of training camp technically. After this, it's technically not training camp anymore. And again, practices will not be open to the public. And Like, fans can't go, and even media members who are there won't be allowed to like just be out there reporting everything that they see and uploading clips. So again, just to remind you of that. But with this being the last day of training camp officially by title, it's not like this is the last day that they're practicing until we go week 1 against the Cardinals, but it's technically the last day of training camp. But now they're about to start like practicing as if they're going into regular season games and stuff like that. But either way, the last day of training camp, they gave out free ice cream. I'm telling you, man, Josh Harris just does so many little things right. It's so beautiful. Again, I'm working on a whole separate video about the sponsorships and why we're starting to get them now that Dan Snyder sold the team, all that type of stuff. Josh Harris is just doing so many things right. I mean, even just the capacity to hold 10,000 fans basically with the new setup that they had for training camp with the bleachers for seats and shade and stuff like that. It's absolutely amazing. And then to just give out free ice cream the last day of training camp, just like they gave out free beer the first day that he bought the team. Josh Harris just does so many things right. It just feels so amazing to be a professional franchise. It's amazing that a lot of fan bases take that for granted. We don't as Commanders fans because we're just now getting it. We've only had it for like a month. And then also moving on to the injury report. Overall, Ron Rivera basically said that a few players are dealing with minor injuries and he basically expects everybody to be available week 1. So let's go ahead and get that out the way. Let's get that completely out the way. Other than Dax Milne, who we'll talk about at the end of the injury report because he's the only player that we're going to talk about whose injury happened after Ron Rivera had his press conference. Like, he had like a before practice press conference where he discussed a lot of the injuries. And then after that, Dax Milne was the only player to get hurt during practice. So he's the only update that's not included with most of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. Most notably, like how I just said, Ron Rivera said that he expects everybody to be ready by week 1. Now, Dax Milne's injury is a mystery right now, and I'm not saying that he won't be available week 1. We just don't know. But everybody else, Ron Rivera expects everybody. Chase Young, Logan Thomas, Danny Johnson, just to name a few, to all be ready by week 1. But let's go ahead and get to it. First of all, Ron Rivera said tackles Andrew Wiley and Charles Leno and cornerback Kendall Fuller have a couple of nicks, and we're just trying to be careful. But Wiley was kicked in a calf during practice, so that's why he's out right now. Charles Leno's already missed like a practice and a half. Kendall Fuller takes veteran days off, but he looks to be good to go. Rivera also added that Jonathan Allen is dealing with a plantar fasciitis. I'm not even going to sit here and act like I know what that is or what that means, but Ron Rivera said that it's nothing serious and nothing to worry about, but I feel like I've never heard of whatever that is. The exact quote is, "There's just guys that got a couple of nicks, and we're just trying to be careful." Again, the key to it more than anything else is getting to week 1 of the regular season with our guys. And so one of the things we talked about, myself and Al and a couple of others, is making sure that that's what we have these guys available for. These are not long-term things that we think guys are going to miss anything. We just want to make sure that they're sharp and ready to roll. We've had a few good, really good weeks at camp, and we're just trying to be really smart about some things. Jonathan Allen, he's just messing with plantar fasciitis. Nothing serious right there. Andrew was kicked in the calf the other day in practice, and so we just want to be careful with that. We'll go from there with these guys. Unquote. That's the exact quote from Ron Rivera. So again, nothing serious for anybody, but it's still a pretty long list. As far as Logan Thomas goes, Ron Rivera said the biggest thing with Logan's going to be more about conditioning than anything else. He's been doing what he can as far as trying to keep himself conditioned. He's been working in the weight room with the strength conditioning guys as well. He's sharp. He's already up to speed on what we're doing offensively. And then once we get him back on the field, it will be about getting his timing with the rest of the guys on the offense, especially with the quarterback too. Unquote from Ron Rivera. Again, nothing serious. If anything, he's saying is just conditioning. Now, maybe this could just be Ron Rivera giving us coach talk and just saying things that he thinks we want to hear. But assuming that Ron Rivera is right, nothing serious with Logan Thomas. And when it comes to the chemistry thing, I'm not worried about that at all, because Logan Thomas was literally Sam Howell's favorite target before he got hurt and has missed like the past week or two of practice. So I'm not too worried about that. But even so, Logan Thomas was working on the side field with a trainer and even jogging a little bit today in practice. So he's not far off at all. And then also, again, just an update. People did not see Kendall Fuller, Jonathan Allen, or Fedarian Mathis at practice. Fedarian Mathis is the only injury I'm like even kind of worried about. Last time we saw him, he was in a boot and just hasn't practiced in a minute. That's the only one I'm worried about. Danny Johnson, of course, with his rotator cuff that's sprained because of the Mark Andrews body slam, was out there but was watching, wasn't participating in practice. And then Chase Young was going through individual drills, and he just hasn't done team drills like the past week. he missed all team drills against the Ravens, but he's going through individual drills, and when he does, he looks good. But Wiley and Leno, both of whom Rivera said before practice are dealing with a few nicks, are going through the install period with the rest of the starters. So they're at the very least active and doing things. And then when it came to team drills like 11 on 11s and stuff like that, Andrew Wiley actually went back out there and participated. Charles Leno didn't, Jonathan Allen and Chase Young didn't either, but at the very least, Andrew Wiley was out there with the starters and team drills as if nothing's wrong with them. And then also, Danny Johnson and Chase Young were just working on the side field with trainers during team drills. So they were doing a lot of stuff. And most notably, Chase Young was working on a lot of pass rush drills, which I'm happy about. But then, during practice, a new injury update was Dax Milne. He left and went inside during the early portion of practice and never came back out. So we don't know what's going on there. And again, we haven't gotten an update from Ron Rivera as far as that goes. Since everybody else, Ron Rivera, when he's saying that he expects everybody to be ready by week 1, that's including everybody but Dax Milne. I'm still not exactly sure about Fedarian Mathis in my personal opinion, but Ron Rivera says that everybody should be good to go, even with Fedarian Mathis in that boot. And then coaching wise, the only thing I wanted to bring up, shouts out to my boy Josh Taylor who went to practice today. He said on Twitter, and if you're not following him or subscribe to him on Twitter, you're tripping, YouTube, all of that. But he said EB is showing a lot more play wise today. Won't go into too much detail, but a lot of creative plays I wouldn't think of, but work so well. Example, fake running back screens, play actions, etc. So like I talked about in yesterday's training camp breakdown, which came out like technically this morning, like early this morning, like 1 a.m., Ron Rivera starting to get a little frisky. He's starting to throw out a lot of weird plays. Wildcat, direct snaps to Curtis Samuel. Sam Howell lined up out wide as a receiver, jet sweeps to Terry McLaurin, and then he dove even a little bit deeper into his bag today. I can't wait to see what he does in the regular season because, again, we're about to shut down practice after today so they can really start to work on real offense stuff, not the vanilla base level stuff that we're just going through the motions and just trying to evaluate guys. No, we're trying to game plan and win these games type of stuff. Real stuff that, like, if opponents see it, could ruin our chances of winning a game type of stuff. So if we're getting this where fans are able to go and record practice, I can't imagine what type of stuff we're about to be seeing in regular season games, what they work on from tomorrow all the way up to the regular season game week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals, which of course is that little calendar you see in all of my thumbnails, or at the very least the majority of them, is a countdown to the exact day of when we play week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. So I've been keeping y'all updated on that for like the past like month or more. Now moving on to the quarterback position. Overall, Sam Howell had a really good day as expected. He's been putting together consistent, really good days. He's becoming more and more just consistent overall, even though he did throw 2 interceptions today. But what I have to say about that is that you can kind of tell that he's just trying to see what he can get away with. You can tell that a lot of his interceptions in practice are just like, you know what, let me try to force it right here. I wouldn't normally do this in a game situation, but let's try it. Because like he wasn't even attempting the type of throws that he was throwing interceptions for today in that Browns preseason game. You probably won't even see him attempt them in the Ravens preseason game Monday night. That's just like a practice only thing. Let me see if I can get away with it. Nope. All right, not doing that no more. Not doing it when it matters at the very least. Also, when the starters were out there for a 2-minute drive situation, they moved the ball pretty far up the field, but then once they got to the red zone, the defense put the clamps on everything. They had 3 consecutive incompletions, but Terry McLaurin working up the field got 2 grabs to get them into the red zone. But then Emmanuel Forbes nearly intercepted a pass to Terry McLaurin with excellent coverage. One of those throws that I'm talking about where Sam Howell probably doesn't even attempt that in a real game situation, because Emmanuel Forbes was completely over Terry McLaurin, completely blanketed him. It should have been an interception type of thing. But either way, though, the positive I take from this is that in 2-minute drills, Sam Howell and the offense were moving so easily. It's just once they got down to the red zone, we got to figure that out. But I love the fact that Terry McLaurin was a big part of what they were doing moving down the field. It's actually weird because Jahan Dotson, it took a while for Sam Howell to finally target him today. So that was really weird because Jahan Dotson has basically been Sam Howell's favorite target since Logan Thomas has been out. Terry McLaurin, you could say, has been Sam Howell's favorite deep target, but overall, just any other random situation, Jahan Dotson has usually been the guy that's been getting targets from Sam Howell. But today it was a little different, which is really random. But I feel like one great way to describe Sam Howell, if I had to use one word, is comfortable. Maybe a backup word would be confident, but comfortable. He looks very comfortable out there in charge. Even when he throws the interceptions, again, it just looks like he's just trying things that he wouldn't normally do. It's not like a mistake necessarily. It's more so, let's see what we can get away with. Nope, we can't. All right. let's go ahead and never do that again type of thing. So I'm really excited about Sam Howell, and I'm telling y'all, this Ravens preseason game, I think he's going to ball out again, and I think he's just going to be a franchise quarterback for us and ball out indefinitely. I'm really excited about that. And then lastly, Jacoby Brissett had a really good day today. He threw touchdowns. He threw should-have-been touchdowns that people dropped, most notably Cole Turner. We're going to talk about that. He had a really good day today, and which further proves my point that it's not like Sam Howell won the QB1 job, the starting QB job, just simply because Jacoby Brissett was bad and he won it by default. No, Jacoby Brissett has been on point, really good. In any typical scenario, if Sam Howell weren't here, say if it was Jacoby Brissett the way he's playing this offseason, if he was here last offseason, he may have beat out Carson Wentz for the starting job. That's how good Jacoby Brissett has been. But on top of all of that, Sam Howell has just been even better, which should have you more optimistic about Sam Howell's future as a franchise quarterback for this team. Because Jacoby Brissett hasn't been slacking at all. Sam Howell has just been on point even more. And then plus he has a higher ceiling, of course. You'll take the ceiling of Sam Howell over the consistency of Jacoby Brissett. And then the fact that Sam Howell has been more consistent is just unfair. It's really unfair there. Then running back wise, Brian Robinson, boy, he was running his tail off today. I mean, here's one play right here. That boy can run, boy. That boy can run. But don't sleep on him in the passing game as well, because Sam Howell was able to hit him for a pass for a touchdown on a play that was in the red zone. Here's that clip right here if you want to see that. Then wide receiver wise, of course, like I said, Terry McLaurin was balling out. He received back-to-back targets at one point. Here's one of them. And then moving on from the top guys like Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Curtis Samuel, those guys, let's start to dive into this receiver group and what it's looking like, who's going to get some of those last spots. As of right now, it looked like a lot of the wide receivers that were running with the twos that were at the very least getting the majority of the snaps with the twos were roster lock De'Ami Brown, and then you also have Byron Pringle and Mitchell Tinsley. So are those the guys that are getting the last two spots over Marcus Kemp, over Casimir Allen, over Dax Milne, over Bryson Tremaine, over all of the other guys? Are those the guys that are getting the last two spots? Let me know. That's really interesting that they were getting the majority of the snaps with the twos. And then Mitchell Tinsley was killing people, man. He caught like a nice little 25-yard gain after he got behind Barton and ran a route perfectly in front of Tariq Castrofield's zone to be wide open for an easy catch. And then even when he was out there with the ones, he was balling out. But here's a clip of Mitchell Tinsley getting open right here. I mean, you could definitely say that he's probably wide receiver 5 or 6 just off of how well he's performed this offseason. He's carved out a role as an undrafted free agent to really potentially make this 53-man roster. But again, here's the clip right here. And like I said, this guy had 2 catches in the same drive against the starters. It didn't matter who he was going against, starters, backups. Mitchell Tinsley has been making plays, as you saw in that preseason game against the Browns. It's even better in practice because he gets more targets. I'm telling y'all, man, watch out for Mitchell Tinsley. We've been trying to tell y'all, you cannot forget the fact that when Bailey Zappi had his record-setting year, Mitchell Tinsley was his #1 receiver. He went to Penn State, got hurt, had a disappointing year. People just forgot about him. But this guy has a lot of talent. He's definitely more crisp as a receiver than a lot of the other undrafted free agents. He definitely looks further ahead, looks more like a veteran compared to a lot of those guys. Definitely probably the best hands out of all of the backup, like the guys that are still fighting for those last 2 roster spots. And then also, man, don't sleep on Casimir Allen, because at one point we ran a jet sweep with them. So we're getting creative and getting him involved with the offense, even if it's not throwing him the ball. He did have a couple of bad practices with the Ravens as far as catching the ball wise. He was getting open as much as he wanted against the Ravens, but then he had some bad drops. But that wasn't like him. Everything that I've heard and seen from training camp up to that joint practice session with the Ravens, he was catching pretty much everything that you threw at him. He just had a bad couple of days when the lights were at their brightest. But regardless, we're going to give him the ball. And if he makes the team, we're going to give him the ball in situations to where he doesn't even necessarily have to have great hands, like this jet sweep right here. I mean, with his explosion, that makes me really excited about him being our potential starting punt returner. Those are the type of plays that he can do, be a gadget guy like that. And there was even one play where Jake Fromm overthrew Zion Bowen so bad that Casimir Allen ended up making the catch 25 yards down the field, which is absolutely ridiculous. How do you overthrow a guy so bad that another guy ends up getting the catch? But shouts out to Casimir Allen for having the hands to put that play together, even though he wasn't the one targeted. You know how hard that is to do in Madden when you don't specifically throw a ball at a receiver and now suddenly they just forget how to catch because you didn't click their button. Shouts out to Casimir Allen for being able to bring that in. Then tight end wise, John Bates has been really consistent with catching the ball ever since them Ravens joint practices. You know, he had that one ridiculous drop against the Browns. Since then, he's been on point, catching everything thrown towards him, just like he had a really good touchdown catch from Jacoby Brissett in the end zone. But at the same time, Cole Turner, I don't know what's been going on, but in those Ravens joint practices, he had some amazing catches, but he's also been inconsistent with his hands, had a few drops then, and he also had 2 drops within 5 minutes of each other in practice today. Cole Turner, get it together. I don't know what's going on, because against the Browns, you caught all 4 of your targets. You look like you were the most safe hands we had on the team, arguably, and then suddenly, ever since after that Browns preseason game, you can't catch anything, or at the very least, you've been very inconsistent, and John Bates can catch everything. I don't know if they just happen to touch footballs at the same time and accidentally Space Jam swap powers, but man, we got to get that fixed right now, Cole Turner, I'm telling you. Then offensive line wise, again, with all of the injuries, things got a little weird. So you had Cornelius Lucas starting at left tackle for us. That's why Cornelius Lucas is so valuable, because if Andrew Wiley's hurt, right tackle, Leno's hurt, left tackle. Keep it pushing. Sadiq Charles is starting at left guard. I want to let y'all know that right now. When healthy, they're really forcing this Sadiq Charles at left guard thing. They really want Chris Paul to be the backup for some reason. I'm ready to move on with Chris Paul as a starter, but it is what it is. So to let you know, Cornelius Lucas starting at left tackle today with Leno out. Sadiq Charles starting at left guard today. So if Sadiq Charles is healthy, he's probably starting at left guard against the Ravens. Just to go ahead and let you know. And then the rest of the offensive line was normal. Nick Gates is center, Samuel Cosme at right guard, and again, Andrew Wiley was able to come back to practice and participate in everything, including team drills at right tackle. Then moving on defensive line wise, nothing really notable other than the fact that since Jonathan Allen's out, we already know Chase Young being out. That means Andre Jones and all of those guys are getting more snaps with the ones, and Andre Jones has been taking complete advantage of it, shining. It's starting to look like, man, does Andre Jones have a better chance of making this roster over KJ Henry at this point? One's a 5th round pick, the other one's a 7th. The 7th round pick is looking more promising. It's crazy. And KJ Henry was having a really good training camp, but Andre Jones is just really shined with the ones, man. He put on against the Ravens. He's been putting on against the Commanders in training camp. That guy shows a lot of flash, and everything that we were hoping Shaka Toney would be, he's already starting to show that way earlier. Like, Shaka Toney was never this point yet. Shaka Toney has a higher ceiling. He's more athletic, and I wanted to move him to like an outside Sam linebacker like role and ask him to cover guys and stuff like that. But either way, as a situational pass rusher, Andre Jones, you can argue, is already ahead of where Shaka Toney was ever at. So, man, this guy is not playing. But my main point was, with Jonathan Allen out, that makes the defensive line really interesting as well, because James Smith-Williams and Efe Obada, who mainly play outside and edge rusher type of stuff, 5-tech, defensive end, if anything, those guys are getting more looks on the inside at defensive tackle, interior defensive line with Jonathan Allen out, especially with the ones that are being rotated in there. So does that mean that they're prioritizing those guys as positional flex that can play defensive tackle guys, and we only keep one guy between John Ridgeway and Fedarian Mathis? That's really interesting, though, because Fedarian Mathis is currently hurt. You can't depend on him to stay healthy. He's pretty much a defensive line version of Sadiq Charles so far. So is that safe to try to stow away John Ridgeway on the practice squad, or even flat out release him and you just hope Fedarian Mathis stays healthy? But at the same time, if you keep both of them, that means you're not keeping somebody between Andre Jones, KJ Henry, James Smith-Williams, Efe Obada, Casey Toohill. Maybe 1 or 2 of those guys don't make the roster, which is insane. Our defensive line, whoo boy, when it comes to breaking down that 53-man roster, making cuts, it's going to be really tough for that receiver room, that secondary, and that defensive line room, man. I'm not jealous of the guys that have to put that together, man, because no matter what, they're going to feel like they made the slightly wrong decision. They can't be completely right. No matter who they cut out of that group of people I just listed, one of those, or maybe even multiple of them, will go elsewhere to another team and ball out, and we're going to feel like we regret it. Even if we made the right decision, we kept the better player, it doesn't necessarily mean that we didn't cut a really good player. Man, man, we're going to be hurt no matter who we cut. I'm telling you that now. Receiver and defensive line wise especially. Also, linebacker wise, Jamin Davis really stood out today. He made some great plays in coverage. Like, for example, there was a play action rollout to the right by Sam Howell. He had Jahan Dotson in the back of the end zone, but Jamin Davis read it and jumped the route and deflected it. And he was like 10 yards in front of Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson was technically open, but Jamin Davis did a great job of reading the route, reading the play, reading Sam Howell, filling the zone out, and then jumping up 10 yards in front of Jahan Dotson and be able to bat the ball down. Those are the type of amazing plays that Jamin Davis is probably the only linebacker on roster can make, and that's why we need to see that more often from him. Then defensive back-wise, man, Emmanuel Forbes had himself a day today, y'all. And I know this has been a common theme, and it's getting to the point that I'm about to start treating Emmanuel Forbes like Terry McLaurin, where it's kind of like you expect it. Like, there's no point of even talking about it. Of course, Emmanuel Forbes had a great day in practice today type of thing. That's why I'm so excited about. Just like Sam Howell, he's already further ahead in his development than I expected. I didn't expect Emmanuel Forbes to look like our best corner on roster before we even got to week 1 of the regular season. Like I've already explained in previous videos, the cornerback position has the hardest growing pains outside of any position. Other than quarterback, corner usually takes the most time to develop in the transition from the college to NFL level. I mean, guys typically need like a year or two to reach their potential. That's why Sauce Gardner was so amazing. And now Emmanuel Forbes, I'm not saying he's Sauce Gardner, but he's already looking like a really good corner before we even get to week 1 of the regular season of his rookie year. That's fantastic. That's phenomenal. That is very rare stuff, man. And then, but again, today he had a great day. At one point, he had a really good, nice pass breakup on Terry McLaurin from a throw from Sam Howell. Literally ran the route just as well as Terry McLaurin, if not better. It should have been picked off. If you want to see that clip, here it is. This is the part that I was talking about earlier where Emmanuel Forbes had a great pass breakup on Sam Howell with really good coverage against Terry McLaurin. Here's the clip if you wanted to see it. And so, of course, with him dropping an interception that he should have had, you know our boy Emmanuel Forbes had to make it up and get an interception of his own and actually go through and complete the play. Well, Emmanuel Forbes first deflected the pass from Terry McLaurin, then plays later, he was able to pick off a pass from Sam Howell that was intended by John Bates. Benjamin St-Juste doing what he does, deflecting passes so other people could get interceptions. We saw that last year, Benjamin St-Juste deflecting passes so Derek Forrest could get interceptions. Today, Emmanuel Forbes, who just has a knack for being around the ball just like Derek Forrest, so now we have more ball hawks that are going to potentially get more turnovers for us. Benjamin St-Juste doing what he does, deflects a pass, great coverage on a big tight end. That's Benjamin St-Juste's job. Him and Cameron Curl are probably our best tight end coverers right now until Quan Martin develops into that type of guy as well. And Emmanuel Forbes was there to catch the interception, to finally get the interception that he deserved and should have had the first time. If you want to see the play, here it is right here.
So Pittsburgh, it's like tired.
And speaking of Benjamin St-Juste played outside today because Kendall Fuller was out. So anytime Kendall Fuller misses practice, assume Benjamin St-Juste will play outside because he's better outside. The only problem is Kendall Fuller is literally terrible on the inside. You have to play him outside. And Emmanuel Forbes, even to a higher extent than Benjamin St-Juste, I prefer him outside way more than the inside. So by default, even though I prefer Benjamin St-Juste on the outside, if we're gonna have our 3 best corners out there in any given play, Benjamin St-Juste would have to play inside. But hey, man, if Kendall Fuller's out of practice, he's hurt for any reason in a game, Benjamin St-Juste outside, thank you. And then also Sam Howell threw a pick to Derek Forrest. Again, speaking of the devil, another ball hawk that just always seems to be around the ball when he needs to be, where he's supposed to be, all of that type of stuff. Here's the clip of that if you wanted to see that as well. And then you thought that was it as far as pass breakups for Benjamin St-Juste in today's practice? No, he had another one as well, this one against Jahan Dotson. I'm telling you, Emmanuel Forbes looks really good, and Benjamin St-Juste looks like he's poised to have that breakout year that's going to make him a household name to even common, regular NFL fans. This secondary is about to be ridiculous, and because the secondary is going to be ridiculous, that's going to allow the defensive line to be even better than they've normally been. Because, I mean, coverage sacks for the Commanders, for the Washington football team, for recent Redskins teams, unheard of. Coverage sacks? We're actually going to start to get some of those because our secondary is that elite. The defensive line is going to make the secondary better. The secondary secondary is going to make the defensive line better. And then you just have the linebackers in the middle. All you got to do is just do your job. You don't have to do anything outside of your element. Just do what you're asked to do, and our defense should easily be competing for the best defense in the entire NFL. Now, moving on to special teams, I feel like a lot of people didn't necessarily notice this, but with Dax Milne hurt, what does that mean as far as the punt return competition? And honestly, they're fighting for one of those roster spots, direct competition against each other for that spot right now. And whoever's going to start a punt return is going to get that spot, regardless of who's the better wide receiver technically. It's probably who's going to end up getting that spot is going to be the guy that's going to start a punt return for you. Now, granted, if Dax Milne is just that much far ahead of Kazmir Allen as far as being a receiver, then maybe they'll just be like, well, we'll deal with a slightly less good punt returner for the way better receiver. Maybe I can see that scenario happening, but honestly, I feel like whoever wins the punt return job probably gets that roster spot over the other guy. And with Dax Milne hurt, that really sucks. So I hope Dax Milne is able to come back healthy to give us true competition, because I'm rooting for Kazmir Allen to win it, but I don't want him to win it by default just simply because Dax Milne is hurt. I want Kazmir Allen to win it, Dax Milne fully healthy, because then I would be more optimistic and encouraged by the fact that he earned that spot. And we already saw how Dax Milne was a starting punt returner last year. Not bad, but also not explosive, not great, nothing exciting. If Kazmir Allen's able to beat that guy who started as a punt returner for us last year with no real serious issues, that means Kazmir Allen stepped up his game and really earned it. Because you got to remember, Kazmir Allen was not really a punt returner for UCLA when he was in college. He was mainly only a kick returner. And with him being such an electric kick returner, you know they tried him at punt returner. He just wasn't able to do it for some odd reason, I guess. Maybe he was muffing punts. We don't know. I don't have access to UCLA behind the scenes reports like that to that level. I'm just guessing right now. So that does worry me as far as Kazmir Allen goes. Why was he not doing punt returns in college if he was doing kick returns in college? They would have asked you to do both, and you would have been the top candidate for that. So he must have not been able to do something correctly, must have been inconsistent at punt return. So again, Dax Milne, we need you healthy, because I need to see Kazmir Allen earn that starting punt return job. But on top of all of that, if Dax Milne is hurt to the point that he can't play in this Ravens preseason game coming up Monday night, which I will be live streaming again from beginning to end, does that mean Kazmir Allen wins the job by default? Like, this is going to be really interesting. If Dax Milne isn't healthy enough to go in that Ravens preseason game, we're going to see Kazmir Allen getting all of the punts, and even if he looks good, it's not going to be enough to really compare him to Dax Milne. So this is a very interesting situation, a really weird problem that we've ended up in when Dax Milne suddenly become hurt. Hopefully it's nothing bad. Hopefully Dax Milne is good to go and he can play against the Ravens, and we'll see. But also, now moving on from special teams to all of the random stuff I wanted to update y'all on. First of all, when it came to contract extensions and negotiations, Ron Rivera said, quote, "Contract talks with key players with Josh Harris. There's a lot to do. To assume anything will happen immediately is unfair. They are still learning and understanding us. We're still talking with them and trying to get things lined up and in order," unquote. So I'm pretty sure most people have Cameron Curl in mind in the back of their heads when they hear stuff like that. But you also got to remember, we have a lot of 2024 free agents coming up. I mean, of course, pretty much our entire edge room, except for the guys that we just drafted in KJ Henry and Andre Jones. I mean, F.A. Obata, Casey Toohill, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, all of those guys. Also Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Kendall Fuller, just to name a few. That's not even half of them. So, hey, man, it's going to get pretty ugly, but I would love to prioritize Cameron Curl before the season starts, before he balls out and starts to get interceptions, and now the price has gone up by the 2024 offseason, and we're less likely to sign all of those guys that I just named. Also, as far as playing time for the players versus the Ravens on Monday night, Ron Rivera said we're going to discuss that tonight as a coaching staff. We'll go through all the stuff as to who's going to be available, so injury-wise and health-wise. We know that from Al, and then we will talk about each player's amount of playing time. So they're deciding tonight. We don't exactly know how much starters will play, how much certain backups will play and stuff like that, what the rotation will be, what the personnel groupings will be, because they're still working on that themselves, and they'll probably know by tonight. It may be announced tomorrow, but maybe we won't know until we actually see them go out there and do it Monday night. We'll see. Also, Ron Rivera said that there are a number of players and position groups that he will have an eye on for the next two preseason games. Wants to get primary backups more opportunities to see their growth and development. So if the starters look good enough and they get everything done, expect Rivera and company to pull the starters as quickly as possible, because they have so much tough competition at different position groups, most notably wide receiver, defensive line, and secondary, that they want to give those guys as many opportunities as they can so that they feel like they can make the right decision on who they choose and who they let go. So again, In this preseason game against the Ravens, I'm expecting to see the starters at least a little bit, but Ron Rivera sounds like they want to do everything they can to get the backups as many looks as possible. So just keep that in mind when we go into that Monday night preseason. And then also the last preseason game, the third one, I mean, we may not even see the starters play at all. So we'll see how that goes. And again, just to remind y'all, this was the last day of training camp. This is the last day that fans can attend, all of that type of stuff. Now it's just full-blown real practice, like we're game planning and preparing for the Arizona Cardinals, basically. Also, as far as preseason goes and with the Ravens, Samuel Cosme was asked about the Ravens preseason win streak, which dates all the way back really far. The win streak goes all the way back to September the 3rd, 2015. That was the last time the Ravens lost a preseason game. And that's also crazy because Lamar Jackson made his Louisville debut 2 days after that, same year, same month, 2 days after that, the last time the Ravens lost a preseason game. And now that man has already won an MVP. He's been in the league for a few years. That's how long it's been since the Ravens have lost a preseason game. But when Samuel Cosme was asked about it, his quote is hilarious. Actually, matter of fact, instead of me reading it, here goes the clip of him talking about it himself. Here you go.
Does that Ravens win streak even enter your brain, the preseason win streak?
I think it's a stupid record. I mean, who gives about preseason games?
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, if we beat it, great. Well, we're going to beat it, so there we go.
But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm that subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button if you like the content. Again, even though training camp is done, I'm still coming out with at least 2-3 videos a day because there's so much other stuff we got to work on, rookie film sessions, all of that. So make sure you stay tuned, man. But yeah, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video, the injury updates, the start and punt return competition, Sam Howell throwing 2 interceptions. Are you one of the people that's going to overreact to that? How do you feel about Emmanuel Forbes already looking like our best corner and locking up Terry McLaurin on a couple of plays today? How do you feel about Cole Turner suddenly forgetting how to catch and John Bates learning how to catch? Do you believe in the Space Jam theory that I gave in the video? Also, let me know how you feel about Brian Robinson being a dual threat weapon for us, contract negotiations now that Josh Harris is here, and just Josh Harris is just being an overall great owner. Free beers on the first day that he bought the team, free ice cream the last day of training camp, all of the things we talked about in today's video. Sadiq Charles still being forced as a starting left guard. Let me know how you feel about everything. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points today. And again, I'm gonna take like one day to just sit down for like maybe 5 hours and reply to as many comments as I can. That's how many comments it is, but I really want to read and reply to as many as I can. So just stay patient. Definitely get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything because I will be on the way soon. And yeah, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, names you scrolling on the screen right now, man. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.